I feel like 1/8 scale is a bit too small, but this is extraordinarily detailed. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven. Today with a return to this video series of mine that I used to do last year. I call it Old But Gold. Basically, I take a look at older figures that were released in the past. I just want to bring up God Eater. I simply loved their characters for the same reason why I loved Fate's Grand Order or Black Rock Shooter or Goddess of Victory Nikkei, or name it. Any Bishoujo character with huge nice weapons, be it guns or swords, I love those kind of characters, right? And God Eater was exactly that. So I did not even need to play the game to like the characters. So here we are with a 1/8 scale figure of Ciel Alencon from God Eater, made by Good Smile Company. I think this came out way back in 2014, 2015. I should have checked myfigurecollection.net in advance, but this is a fairly old figure by now. And back then, this was a fairly expensive, yen back then was pretty strong, a fairly expensive 15,000 yen plus. But as a college student back then, I think I was a senior college student, I told myself I needed to have the figure because I liked the character design so much. I chose to pre-order the figure from a local toy store instead of, buying it, importing it from Japan directly. So I got this figure from a local store for around like 550 Malaysian ringgit back then. Yeah, and back then that was the equivalent of about 120 or 130 US dollars. I don't even remember what was the exchange rate like 10 years ago. And that was dirt cheap for high quality scale figure. Shortly after I picked up this figure, the value went up and it never really dropped down to normal levels again. At one point, she went up as high as 40,000 yen. I have even experienced a few people approaching me, be it via private messaging, direct messaging, or anywhere else, asking me, do you want to sell this figure? Because I want it. If you are no longer interested in it, I want the figure. And I said no, because I liked the figure a lot. I had at least 5 people asking me for this figure. Today, I don't think she's going for 40,000 yen, but I think 25, 30k maybe. Yeah, not as high as before, but it is still selling for way above the initial selling price, right? But in my opinion, if you can find one for 25,000 yen or less, ideally 20,000 yen, this is a fine purchase despite being an old figure. The main reason being, this is a high percentage ABS figure. In a way that despite the complexity of this figure, this is a very lightweight figure. It is not heavy at all, right? Because the PVC percentage is lower, ABS percentage is higher, and that directly translates into a figure that is less likely to turn yellow over time, to become sticky or oily, because less plasticizer is coming out from the figure. This is something I did not display on my shelf. I kept her locked up in the box for so long because, it is like a treasure to me in a way. I kept her in the box for a really long time with the blister plastic that I removed over here. So, despite being kept in the box for so many years, this figure did not become sticky or oily or anything else. She is fine when I took her out from the box recently after being locked up for years, right? Not every old figure are worth buying because, some of them to become problematic over the years, right? Not this one over here. So that is all great news. A quick mention about the box packaging over here. I wish that this kind of box is more common. This is really tough, really hard. I've been keeping this for so many years and you see the box is barely showing any wear and tear, When you keep boxes for a really, really long time, it is starting to look like, crumpled up, and then all 4 corners will be wearing off, blunted away, things like that. Not happening to this box really much other than, the glue coming off and I had to tape it. So this is a really good quality box that we don't see very often in figures nowadays unless we go above 30,000 yen. However, when it comes to stability of the figure, this is one of the major weaknesses of this figure because, she is top heavy and she is standing on one single leg. So obviously, she is going to wobble a lot. See, she wobbles very easily because of how heavy this sword is. You can opt for this alternative sword, which I actually do kind of prefer this one if I were to display the figure because this looks a bit cluttered and messy. And why is her sword like this with alien things coming out? You need to watch the anime adaptation or play the game to understand it why. So there's an extra plastic stand to hold this sword, which it is a nice thing to have. I know that a lot of you hate plastic rods, support rods, I myself included, but it is a necessary evil if you don't want parts to sag down. And then the next thing you need to be aware of, where it is a potential problem for this figure should you choose to pick one up, is that there were some copies out there. The joints over here at the wrist, right, for you to replace the sword, it is kind of loose, and how loose it is depends on your luck, obviously. My copy was fairly okay, but back then when this figure came out, some people, they had copies where the arm joints are so loose that they had to email Good Smile support about it, and they received an entire figure replacement. Only the main figure, of course. And despite receiving replacements, they are still kind of loose, just less bad, right? Mine is okay, so I did not request for additional parts from Good Smile. And with this figure, more about God Eater is that personally, it feels like wasted potential to me. Once again, I don't play the game, but I did watch the anime adaptation. And when you think about how Ufotable was the one behind the anime adaptation, it is perhaps one of their worst works in the past decade or so. Only 10 episodes, and then I think only the first three episodes are great, and then it went downhill from there. Yeah, I don't even know where to get started if I were to complain about the God Eater anime. Maybe the poorly executed anime adaptation was what that slowly killed God Eater. The game was popular, the anime wasn't, and you know, to the semi-normies out there or the casual anime people, casual animal. To the casual anime people out there, to the semi, half normie, half otakus out there, the main way they get exposed to anime characters is via anime, not via buying expensive games, right? And once the anime adaptation is done badly, then the impression is not as good. And then people will proceed to ignore the original content, be it a manga, VN, or game, which might be a lot better. And that is the problem. A poorly executed anime adaptation is often a nail in the coffin for the franchise. Slow and painful death kind of thing. I think another excellent example is Girls Frontline or Dolls Frontline. Anime adaptation was horrible. The rest about this figure are great things, right? This is not a negative, this is more like a neutral thing. I feel like 1/8 scale is a bit too small, but maybe they was trying to keep the price down, so they made her 1/8 scale with this sword over here. Otherwise, at 1/7, she would be like 20,000 yen, and 20k is a lot of money back then. For a 1/8 scale figure, this is extraordinarily detailed. It is among one of the best 1/8 scales I've seen. So, Alta's 1/8 scale Moon Cancer BB is not as good as this figure by Good Smile from almost 10 years ago, despite being the newer figure. The level of detail in the sculpting, in her outfit especially, all those fine details nicely executed, and I have no complaints at all, Sculpt otherwise. Not to mention the paint work is precise. It is very precise for a small figure. No paint bleeding, no glue stains, or any of the QC issues you would normally see in some other figure brands. In fact, Good Smile was a lot more consistent in the past compared to today, and I blame that solely on one thing: increasing manufacturing quantity. No, they try to make as much as possible because they would rather sell the figure to you instead of watching the value go up and letting the sculptor profit from it. Every figure brand is overproducing nowadays, so bargain bins are becoming more common. But at the same time, you know, pumping out a huge quantity of a product, mass producing in huge numbers, means the higher probability of having QC issues. That is what is happening nowadays. So this is from a golden era of Good Smile scale figures, which was mid-2010s. So for a 1/8 scale figure, this is among the best I have in my collection, despite the scale. And I can't really comment on quality control issues like scratches, for example, because this is technically a pre-owned figure now. I have taken her out from the box a few times and put it back over the years. Maybe there are some user-inflicted damages that I'm not aware of, So I am not commenting on any scratches. If there are any, I don't see any, to be honest. So I'm focusing on things like paint bleeding, bad paint work in general, which is something that happens in factory, and there are none of them on this figure, which is an outstanding figure. And lastly, regarding the base, once again, nowadays you get plain plastic round disc bases. Where do you get bases like this? It is not common nowadays, right? Yeah, some Blue Archive figures will give you base like this. I love it so much. So to me, this is an ideal figure base in the sense that we get a diorama, yet it does not take up too much space. I mean, look at Ectoy's Azalea figure, that that giant spider thing. What the heck, right? That is overboard. That's too much. That's going overboard. This is ideal. Detailed figure, diorama base does not take up too much space. And my conclusion for today's video, once again, is the same thing I said earlier. If you love God Eater or their character designs, this is worth picking up despite her age. Just that, don't spend too much on her. I would say I would draw the line at 25,000 yen. Yeah, and even 25k is feeling a bit expensive to me, especially for something that is pre-owned. If it is actually brand new unopened, then 25,000 yen is where I draw the line. Yeah. And that is all for Ciel Alencon today. Hopefully, we'll get to see Alisa also by Good Smile in another couple of weeks. Until then, I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for watching and goodbye.